I just don't understand this line of thinking. It's very difficult for me to understand it. And I don't know if it's because I'm not necessarily crazy or crazy enough to understand it, but I just don't get this mindset of directors or just creators, right? You want to call them creators, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like creators making stuff that they purposefully want people to not like. I don't get that notion, right? Like I don't understand that idea. It just doesn't make any sense. Like if I was trying to create something, I would want as many people as possible to have an opportunity to like it. And if there's people out there that genuinely don't, it is what it is. You aren't gonna please everybody. But to aim for that, to make people unhappy is just weird. And you have this example of the trans Echo director. According to Fandom Pulse, we have a headline that says trans Echo director Sydney Freeland admits that Marvel Cinematic Universe show is not going to please everybody, and they're calling that a good thing. They want to make people unhappy. It's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest take, and I just never will understand it. But let's get into the article, guys, from Fandom Pulse. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. Like the video to push us out into the YouTube algorithm, and consider subscribing to my manga channel. The links are in the description box below. I will love to see you there. So this, of course, is trans director Sydney Freeland, looking like a real buff there, man. Those shoulders are, wow. You got some strong shoulders there, dude. Embracing a love for boring narratives that glorify degeneracy, the trans Navajo director and producer of Echo, Sydney Freeland, finds himself at the intersection of marginalized degenerate stories and big-budget resources as he propels the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, into its next chapter, starting with Echo. Sydney Freeland's journey to becoming the Marvel Cinematic Universe's first openly gender-confused, mentally ill trans director with Echo is a testament to his commitment to corrupting the young minds of children eager to see live-action versions of superheroes and supervillains. He also indicates, like most activists who get into these positions, that his work on Echo is not intended to please fans. Now, again, this is a big problem, and I just made a video. I don't know if you guys saw it because usually those videos get suppressed, but I just made a video about GLAAD, okay? I haven't spoken about GLAAD in a while. I haven't spoken about GLAAD really since Pride Month, because that's when they really are the most active. But GLAAD is a corporation that oversees Hollywood studios, television, movies, all that stuff. They oversee and they make sure that they hit their LGBTQ goals when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion and representation as a whole in Hollywood. So they make sure their goal is something like 50 to 70% representation. They want 50 to 70% of characters in TV shows and movies to be gay or trans or something along those lines. It's absolutely ridiculous. And they score studios based on how much diversity is in the show, and they'll give them a failing grade. And if they fail, they don't have as much funding, they don't have as much access to money, and they basically get less ESG. It all goes together, but that's besides the point. The point is, this particular person is just another prime example of what happens when you have an activist as a director. You're going to have the same problem with the Star Wars movie Rey that's coming up. You're going to have the same exact problem with that movie because that person, that director, is an activist as well. She's a hardcore feminist that hates men as much as she possibly can, but at least she's a real female. This guy, on the other hand, is not only pretending to be a female, but is also using his avenue as a director to push identity politics and to make people unhappy purposefully. It's just the weirdest thing. It says Sydney Freeland's inclusion represents a significant step towards Disney hiring mentally ill people under the misnomer of inclusivity. Of course, the Hollywood Reporter, true to the form of all current year narrative shills, wants us to believe that Sydney Freeland is an outsider and miraculously made it to the big seats at the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Freeland once believed that he was operating at a deficit with no industry connections, never having been on a set, unsure of how to become a director. But in the years since his career began, he has repeatedly proven that things that make him an outsider in Hollywood, his background, is exactly the same thing that makes him successful here. Now, I know they're quoting another article, so that's why they're using the wrong pronouns, but let's be real, man. I say this all the time. When you see these shills write articles about trans people, they go above and beyond. They go above and beyond to try to use as many pronouns as possible. They'll put as many she's and he's as they possibly can fit in there just to drive it home that this person is the opposite sex. We promise. Wink, wink. This person absolutely is. Yes, look at all the she's we're throwing in here. Like, no, bro, we get it. The guy's a dude with a wig. Like, let's stop playing pretend. It says a Hollywood Reporter is complicit in using pronouns to pretend that man is a woman, furthering the agenda in Disney's diversity hire. That's exactly what I was saying. But yeah, pretty much. Sydney Freeland's personal gender confusion adds depth to Disney's arsenal of groomers targeting viewers of Echo and other Marvel Cinematic productions. No longer does Disney have to be content with degenerate lesbian and gay narratives being pushed on unsuspecting viewers of Echo and other Marvel Cinematic productions, many of whom are children. They now have openly transgender directors who can shape the narrative for them. And that's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, if you have too much diversity, equity, and inclusion on screen, where are you going to find the rest of the diversity? They have to keep one-upping themselves. They're not going to stop until everybody's literally trans. I mean, it's basically, it's gotten to that point, at least on screen anyway. We all know that real life doesn't work that way. We all know that these people are usually looked at like complete psychopaths. We all know that that's the truth. It's like an unspoken thing that nobody wants to admit because they're too scared of being canceled by the big boogeyman, the big LGBTQ boogeyman. Whoa. But still, like, let's be real. We know that they're crazy. We know that this is not real life. And we know that people like this will do everything they can to try to change the narrative on screen, to try to make you think that this is normal. They'll co-opt all your favorite IPs, they'll co-opt all your favorite TV shows and movies, and they'll make sure that they input this as much as possible. They used to be subtle about it, but now they're very, very forward about it because now they have complete control over the entire narrative. They can say whatever the hell they want, and people will believe them, even though we all know when you're at home by yourselves with your family, for the most part, 9 times out of 10, if you have this conversation about can a man be a woman or vice versa, you're going to say that that's crazy, right? And a lot of people will do that, but unfortunately, they never say it publicly, which gives people like this the power that they're seeking. So it says Sidney Freeland credits his studies at the Sundance Institute for his ability to truly tell his backwards story. Marvel Cinematic Universe fans aren't going to get reprieve from his degeneracy. Sidney Freeland has made it clear that he isn't interested in pleasing Echo and Marvel Cinematic Universe fans. He is interested in what makes a mentally ill, gender-confused child happy. According to Hollywood Reporter, he said with Echo, it's having the opportunity to tell a story on a massive level about a character that I would have wanted to have seen when I was growing up. And it's not going to please everybody, as any good thing should not. But that was motivation, trying to make that kid growing up reading comic books at powwows happy. So basically, you're trying to make yourself happy. You're writing this entire story for yourself. And that's another problem that's going on in Hollywood right now. They're constantly writing stories that they themselves want to read, that they themselves want to watch. Nobody's making content for people who are not themselves. It's really sad. This is why Japanese media is destroying you. It's not even close because you guys cannot make good stories anymore. You are incapable. You are creatively bankrupt. You don't have that ability anymore. It is lost with time. It was lost the moment you said a chick can have a dick. That's when it was lost. And it's sad, man. It's really sad because a lot of the movies that we grew up on were magical. They were quite amazing and they were really well made. Obviously, they were very cringy in the sense that, back then graphics were really terrible, CGI, all that stuff. So they had to go more practical effect. So when you're looking back at it now, you're like, ugh, that's a little rough looking. But besides that, the stories were really good. And now you just don't have that option anymore. So you're going to keep seeing this stuff happen more and more because companies like GLAAD are going to ensure that they hire activists like this to ruin every single thing that you used to love when you were a kid. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy it. And if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.